And let's get started. So today, the agenda today is we got a fantastic set of guest speakers today. Mark Quickle is our technical practice manager for our SharePoint and Azure team. He's going to walk through an Azure chatbot framework. That's going to take about 30 minutes. We're going to talk with Jeff Fowler this month again as our monthly security guest speaker around containing breaches and secure productive enterprise. And then we're going to take an open mic time for some questions. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome you to the call. Your You Already Own It team, as I said before, Bob Ballard, myself, Jerry Martin, Aaron Ward, George Scott, Mary Tucker always keeps us together, and our sponsors, Vice President here at Planet, Steve Winter. A couple of housekeeping items. Just want to make sure that you don't forget that you can always reach out to our experts through our Ask the Experts portal as a part of your You Already Own It benefits. Is simply putting in the email address youalreadyownit@goplanet.com, and you can get to right to any of those folks on the You Already Own It team. And we'd love to take your questions, provide any feedback or any opportunities to expose some more information to you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mark Quickle. Mark's going to walk through the Azure chatbot services and the Azure chatbot framework. Mark, it's all yours.
Great, thank you, Jay. I'm going to actually try to hit this take over as presenter button, so hopefully.
It looks like you got it.
Awesome, thank you. So first and foremost, I want to thank you all for joining and for actually inviting me, although I'm sure I've spoken with a number of you over the past several years at Planet. This is my first opportunity personally to participate in the You Already Own It webcast. I do know that some folks from my team have done that. So I have the opportunity at Planet to be able to work with our collaboration business and also our business that focuses on applications and data. So, you know, our group is, and you'll kind of hear some themes of this as we go throughout. We're interested in sort of the holistic picture of how we can, you know, drive business value through application development and the data that you already have. And so the Azure bot framework kind of falls into that. Now, I will say, just for a matter of housekeeping, I think we have about 30 minutes. My intention is to start and go through just kind of a quick introduction of the framework and why you might care. In the first 10 minutes or so, I have just a little bit of demonstration. Unfortunately, we don't have time for a lot of demo today to kind of just show what it is for those that haven't had the opportunity to see it. And then in the last about 8 minutes or so, just talk about how we've engaged with customers on it. So first of all, why you might care about the Azure Bot Framework. I think the best way would be a tale of two stories. So just something personally, I was fortunate enough to take 2 days off last week with the family, and we attended a family resort in the Poconos, and they had several hundred guests there. It's a very, very large hotel. And upon our check-in, shortly after we got to our room, we received a message from what appeared to be a bot. It was very automated. You know, it basically said, if you have any questions, try these keywords and ask me, and I will get back to you. So over the period of the 2 days we were there, we actually kind of tested it out. You know, things like, what time is story time? And when does the pool open? And can you make recommendations of good restaurants in the area, right? So simple things like that you would expect when you're traveling to a place maybe that you haven't been before. And after the second day, I said, why don't you ask, I said to my wife, why don't you ask if it's a bot? So she did, to which she got a response, no, I'm an actual real person. So it was kind of interesting because it was almost a bot-like experience, but it was an individual. And they were very helpful. the responses we got ultimately did lead to a positive result. The one thing I will say is there were certainly delays in some of the responses. I think most of the responses were within 2 to 5 minutes, but we did have some that were closer to 10, which in today's time doesn't seem too unreasonable. But when you have 4 children, some as young as 1, and they're waiting to eat, and you're looking for restaurant suggestions, obviously the faster the better, right? So on the inverse side, I was reading an article last week about the state of Montana, their motor vehicle division. A single guy there was trying to make improvements. He worked at one of the remote locations, and he deployed a series of bots to help with handling routine questions. Not too dissimilar to what we experienced in our travel engagement, but it was more focused around, the questions you might ask the DMV. And this was hugely successful for them. They saved, on average, 1,700 calls a month, and on their best month, around 3,600 phone calls for one division. And they did it in a matter of weeks and low budget. So I tell these two stories because I think they compare and contrast. And Jerry, you'll have to remind me to tell our account executive around that hotel to look at that as an opportunity. But
without a doubt,
in that particular case, right, there was an awesome opportunity for them to in the first case, in the hotel case, to for a very low cost take the common questions and answers and retrain the bot as new questions and new answers come in, and deliver real-time responses instead of several minute responses, to be able to scale out, scale down as guests come and go for the weekend or through the week, and then just save the time with a human for more intricate type of scenarios where that is involved. So bots have been around for a while, and if you're an avid Facebook or Messenger user, that's one area I know I personally have had the opportunity to work with them. They do everything from just answer some simple questions to tell me what mood I should be in today based on my activity levels, right? But Microsoft developed the bot framework as a way to take advantage of existing Azure platforms that you have and existing development paradigms, C#, Node.js. You have developers on staff typically sometimes to do that. If not, Planet certainly can help you with that. And build out these bots. And again, speed to delivery is important here. UPS rebuilt their bot using the Microsoft Bot Framework. They're one of the stories that Microsoft shares in a matter of about 5 weeks. And so, when we develop bots using the bot framework, we ask similar questions to what we would building any web application. Because when we look at bots, we don't look at them as a replacement for existing functionality. We look at them as a way to empower sort of new experiences. So, and we'll look at an example of that here in a moment, but the questions you have to ask are like, does the bot easily solve the user's problem and minimize steps? And does it do it any faster or easier than alternative experiences that you may have? Is it more personable? We find that most bots are successful when they guide a user through a series of steps versus being very, very open-ended. So that's kind of a little bit of background. Now, the bot framework, just technically speaking, it's a cloud-hosted platform as a service offering, and it is for building and deploying conversational bots. It's got an SDK as part of it. And tooling, the built right in Visual Studio, and otherwise. There's different kinds of conversations. You can use straight up text. There's also graphical elements such as buttons and card-driven interfaces that are available to you. Speech is another interface, but it has kind of its own caveats. And if you use so you can have a web chat bot handle speech through the browser through Bing or a custom developed service. That's like an example of kind of different caveats to keep in mind when you're using speech. These can be hosted using an app service hosting plan. which is a fixed cost plan. You know exactly what your monthly fee is going to be to have it sitting there. It's like any other Azure app service. Or you can use a serverless plan. You can debug these locally and test it all you want locally. You can do some training and stuff internally. When you're ready, you can deploy it to the serverless plan, and you're basically, it's an Azure function that you're getting billed based on utilization. And there's different types of bot templates that are built in as part of this. There's your basic conversational bot. There's a form flow, which is kind of guiding the user through the process. We'll look at one of those in a little bit. But the general idea is, like ordering a sandwich or something like that, where you're selecting step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and so on. There's the Q&A maker, which is a tool that Microsoft's provided around building bots specifically for Q&A, which can scrape your existing websites or import data through other Azure services that you may have, or even through simple JSON. And then there's proactive bots, which will actually react to the user without being prompted. So the idea, and these can be combined together, would be you go out, you book something through this bot. At a later time, the bot, when your reservation is ready, they can alert the user that their reservation is now ready. And so one of the things we have to think about when we're talking to users is how they might use these different types of templates together. When you create a bot through the bot framework in Azure, you're usually asked to pick one of these by default. But they can be used together, and so we just want to think about that, because we don't want to necessarily be in a situation where we're prompting the user with some sort of proactive message while they're also in the middle of typing some other things and creating confusion. The Azure Bot Framework, on the right side of this graphic, you can see here, works in a variety of different channels. We're not going to have time to look at them all today. The one I prefer using the most is web chat, because web chat is essentially a web page that you can also embed in other places. So it's extremely flexible. But you can work with your organizational email or Teams team, which I don't think is actually on this list, Skype and other types of services as well. One thing to keep in mind is that as you create bots, you can create this code one time and push them out to all these channels. But different channels support different capabilities. For example, the bot we'll look at today, Teams does not allow for image uploading in the bot conversation window yet, where Facebook Messenger might. So you have to be thoughtful in when you're deploying it, what other interfaces you need to be able to provide. And you can actually layer additional functionality. So Teams has their own NuGet package to add additional capabilities on top of the conversational bot part of the bot framework. So there's a little nuance to it, but by and large, let's use a percentage and say around 90 to 95% of your capabilities in the bot framework can be written once and deployed everywhere. And we're going to take a look at some of these tools here. I have the Q&A maker. That is the website, as I talked about earlier, for developing Q&A based bots. And you can actually train your bots through Q&A there. They have a tool to do that. It's called Active Learning. And the bot framework emulator we'll look at here in a few moments, and as well as the bot framework portal. Last slide here. I think the point of this general slide is that bots just work better with Azure services. So and wiring them up is relatively simple. So one of the things that kind of comes up frequently in conversations is, how can I have authentication with this? Yes, in some cases you may want to have your bot publicly available, but in others you might want to require a user log on, either with a business to consumer account such as Facebook or MSN, and so that's a capability. Or if you're developing something for teams, you may want to require them to log on separately with an organizational account. And that can be done as well with a NuGet package called authbot. Additionally, you can use application insights to get information about who is using your bot and what regions are, they're out there. Are there any anomalies? Are there peak times of the day? Application insights, many of you may have heard of it around applications. It absolutely works with the bots and provides some analytics for you. Bots also have the capability to hook into Office 365, so they can connect directly to Teams. They can also connect to your Office 365 email to respond to a user who might be having that dialogue with them. And you can also use Azure Search as the actual driver for the bot framework, which is actually pretty cool. Azure Search, if you have not had the opportunity to use it, is essentially search as a service, but it has built-in faceting available. So you can load all of your data into the search index, and you can set the facets based on actual categorical buttons you want to show up in your bot. So if I wanted to have types of products in different types of categories, or if I was creating one around sort of locations or parks that I might want my public to be able to interact with, I can put those facets in there. Now, not only is that going to be good for your bot, but if you're creating any sort of interfaces on your website and you use Azure Search, Search will actually build those facets for you there as well. So you're getting one-to-one parity, and again, you're kind of developing this sort of one time. And then lastly, cognitive services. I mean, obviously that's a big draw here. Lewis AI is listed here specifically. It's for speech and natural language. There's a template specifically for it. And the idea is not only does it do some translation, it actually provides you those intents back so that you're able to take that data and do something with it. Even if you want to simply use it for training purposes or for logging, right? So if I was creating some sort of travel bot, I can take those pieces of information and then I can put those into a secondary database and now have statistics around how many times people have used the word Orlando, or looking for the words travel and Orlando, excuse me, and get some real data out of that. So when we talk about bots with customers, we spend a lot of time kind of in that area. We're going to come back to this slide actually, so let me share my screen here. Okay, I have to just start this up here. Got carried away. So this is the bot framework emulator. It's a free download that you grab. And this is used for local debugging. So I'm going to hit start over here, so I want to make sure we got a fresh session here. The Contoso Flowers sample, this is directly from the Microsoft examples. I'm not doing anything special in this particular case. So we can see all the traffic here, and I'm not going to do it for the purpose of this session, but we can put our debugger right in Visual Studio and see what's coming back and forth. So if we have to make any tweaks or whatever, we can do that. So let's say we're going to order some flowers, and it's asking me for some information here. So I'm going to put in, I want to thank someone at the office for the hard work they did here. Let's just try that. And it uses some geolocation to figure out is that correct. And so it wants to know if that's right. So I'm going to type that in. I think that's an extra redundant. Yes, that they could remove from the demo, but and then it asks if I want to save it to my favorite. For now, I'm not going to. I want to avoid any logins or anything like that. I'm going to choose some flowers here, and I'm going to choose bouquet 1, and say I'd like them to be delivered tomorrow. And I'm going to send them to Mary Tapper. make up a phone number here. It's guiding me. So this is the example of that form-based email. It's just guiding me through the process. You can see we get some UI elements as well as text. And again, I'd probably say this is a favorite. I've used this all the time. Now, I think this is kind of interesting because I'm going to go and add a credit card now. And what ends up happening is this page is not branded or anything like that, but you can see it now redirects to an actual website, which you would want to be secure, right? And enter in your information. Oh, and Visual Studio just happened to stop on me right at that point. But if it had continued to run, what you would have seen is it actually will put my receipt directly in the chat window and thank me for my order. So that is an example of sort of an end-to-end transaction directly in here and debugging it in Visual Studio. Likewise, I wanted to open up Edge here, and I have another bot that I put out here. This one's a little bit more basic, but I did a little bit of customization to it. So in this particular case, you can see what you essentially have here is an app service. But when you create the app service, if you tag it as a bot type, you're going to get some additional bot management capabilities where you can come in here and add your channels. And I wanted to show it to you because I wanted you to see, for example, when I went in for, I think I got to go this way. When I go in for Skype for Business, this is what I see. It's really, really straightforward. Now, the one thing is I actually have to run a PowerShell commandlet to finish the process. And they don't give me that much control because they don't want me to go crazy. So I'd have to send it over to my IT administrator and have them do it. But that's the end of that particular interface. But if you go in here for Facebook Messenger, for example, you can see there's quite a bit more information that you actually have to add. So these channels do have different setups and configurations that are in here. Now, here is that bot as it would show up in the portal, and you can see here I get some similar things. I can see what channels it's running in, any analytics that should refresh. And the analytics are based off of App Insights. So you have to have that enabled on your project. Let me refresh the page here real quick. So you can see here, I haven't been using this bot, but it shows you your users and the amount of time that they're on there. There are some third-party add-ons that you can add as well, and plus you can take the information as I talked about earlier and put that into your own database. So one of the things we've done with Application Insights, right, is you can track not only the users but where they're coming from, what browsers they're using, that type of thing. And we've taken that data using Stream Analytics and done some of our own analysis on web applications in the past as well. So it can get pretty powerful. So this one's the similar product spot. And the idea is I can, click on here and I can choose an image. And I can see some visually similar images that I as a merchant may have. And notice these point to a site. So what I was thinking was, what if I had a site like AdventureWorks, and I have these different products. This is just the AdventureWorks database, the .NET Core application that's published. Really no work has been put into the actual site here, so forgive the look and feel of that. But, instead of maybe browsing through here, I wanted to do something, again, very similar. This is just showing it on an actual website. And, I put this up here, then I do some processing, and then I can, look at what images are similar on the site, click on it, and then purchase that item directly from AdventureWorks. And, I don't know about you, I run into that sometimes where I might not know exactly the name of a product I'm looking for, but I may be out somewhere, I see somebody wearing a jacket or a shirt or something that I really like, and I could take a picture of it and potentially, get some information from my favorite retailers to whether or not they have it. I do have this on Messenger as well, but let me just show you too quickly that here it is running in Teams. And the Teams interface is a little bit different. Notice you only get one image at a time. You actually have to sort of flip through these very, very quickly. So they all behave just a little bit differently. And we were talking a little bit, going back to an existing conversation point that I mentioned a few moments ago. How could we use this? It's a very simple concept, right? It's taking an image and doing some identification on it. How can we, keeping in mind that we want to extend our existing experiences with something new, and we were thinking, there could be some areas of research that might be applicable. If you're working in medicine, for example, and you want to set up a Microsoft team inside your organization for, conducting conversations around different types of conditions or medicines, you could actually have, photos as part of that process, and you could take that information and do a search against your own internal databases or across Bing generally, right, and get a list of results that may match. And then you could take those results and add them into a database so that what kind of skin conditions are we commonly finding, are we searching for based on photos that are uploaded, right? It's a simple thing. So again, we're not trying to boil the ocean here, but what we are doing is say we already have a Microsoft team around a number of physicians who are having conversations. Let's just be able to mention a bot. Hey, condition bot, tell me what this might be, and then pass that image in and get some sort of result. We also were thinking too, in different areas such as, either farming or forestry, or even in educational. One of the things that we do a lot of work for different, parks departments and that type of thing. Is there any value in there, and potentially, using image identification for different types of wildlife and, different types of plants and so on and so forth. And then the other thing is we run this in the tourism place, right? And so, if you've been to hotels or other types of places, I know one of the things that we run into are, native tribes sometimes allow folks to come in and take tours of sort of the ancient maps and provide information back, and you could actually make that a photo chatbot type scavenger hunt experience where they could go through and take photos of maybe posts or other types of things that you may have along the way, and you have this sort of interactive bot that's coming back and forth with messages and things. So, those are some simple ideas of how to take something that's already out there, right? This bot is part of the example bots and using it in a couple of different areas. But I really like to think about some of the ideas based on feedback that we get from customers too. I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint here really quickly. Sorry. Let me get back there. Jerry, are we able to bring up the presentation?
It should be there.
I am not the Skype guy, I'll tell you.
Let me, you must have made it go away. I don't know how you did that. Let me add it back.
Jerry, if there's a will, there's a way.
Agreed.
Well, while you bring that up, I'll just continue to talk. Maybe you can kind of get that up there. That'd be awesome. So, one of the things that we were fortunate enough to be able to do over the past Microsoft fiscal year is participate in the Hackfest program. So, Microsoft program, there was some funding around it for managed partners, and what it was a couple of day engagement where we would literally spend about a day or two max, a day and a half, sort of meeting with the customer. And then, let's go back here. And sort of educating them in a lot more detail than what we could do in this short time, right? And then we spend time talking about what the goals of their specific chatbot. And some of the ideas that would come in were really great. We saw people that came up with some of the one or two interesting ideas. Was they actually had a bot that was designed specifically for surfacing business intelligence data back to the audience. I thought that was really cool. It's an organizational bot that they didn't open it up to everyone, but they had very, very specific insights that they wanted to do, and they could use Lewis to use natural language to help ask for questions. They could put industry-specific terms in there, and I just thought that was kind of interesting. The other one that we came into, and as someone who worked with SharePoint, there was a bot that was essentially federating different types of document content across sources, CRM and SharePoint, and they had, I think, some blob storage, and they wanted to be able to, again, ask questions and then have the data surface through APIs back to the bot. So that was kind of another cool one. But we've done a couple of different things, and so we have a little bit of conversation, and then we really spend about a day to 2 days developing a bot. It's a hackfest, right? It's supposed to be very quick. So in a matter of a couple of days, we helped build out a prototype or pilot bot in that time. Beyond that, we actually have a longer engagement that we've done, and that is it's called the Cortana Intelligence Suite Workshop for a reason. It's actually just focused on the Microsoft AI stack and Cortana, but the thing is as I mentioned early in this part of my segment, is we really want to focus on the holistic picture, right? So when we come in, we want to make sure, number one, the bot you're developing is going to be successful, and then we want to see what other services you may or may not be thinking about, or that may help make your bot. So are you going to use any of the cognitive services to help drive your bot, right? Are you going to take components from your existing website and help feed the bot with that? Or do you have even data sitting in Azure Search, Azure Data Lake, different areas like that you want to help feed that in? So we do, it's a lot of education, us teaching you about some of the technologies to make sure, but it's always good for us because we get to hear the great things that you guys are thinking about. And then we develop a plan, and we actually help you develop out that pilot application based on your comfort level of how many hours that you want to do. So that's typically anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks is what that workshop is, and it covers a wide variety of different services in either the AI or the data stack. And then, of course, at any time, we do ad hoc development or support around these things. If you're already well down the path of developing your bot and you have some questions or you just want somebody to come alongside, we'd be happy to do that. And of course, because this is just technology and it's exciting and it's interesting, feel free at any point in time just to reach out to me. My information's on here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that I quickly can for you as well. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it back to Jerry. Thank you so much.
Outstanding, Mark. Thanks very, very much. I'd like to flip to our monthly contributor, Jeff Fowler. Jeff is our senior security analyst. Oh, what happened again? Oh, there we go. Okay. Jeff is a senior security analyst, and he's got some updates, a monthly security update for us. Jeff, you want to jump in there?
Sure. Thank you, Jerry. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning for our friends out west. So today I'd like to talk about containing breaches in the secure productive enterprise. This is all about understanding what a breach looks like and what are some of the tools and technologies and methodologies you can employ to help make yourselves a little more resilient in the face of them. All right, so when we talk about a breach itself, what we're talking about here is what happens when the bad guys get inside your networks. Maybe there's a phishing attack that may have occurred. Someone clicked on something they shouldn't have, and suddenly that machine is now under their control. So what typically happens is, on the left-hand side, you can see there where it's green. As soon as the first machine gets compromised, you basically shift into the yellow phase. It's normally when someone's being very noisy on the network. They're trying to gain access to your systems. They're trying to see if they can find a hash somewhere that from an administrator account that they can apply to their own account, and then from there compromise one of your domain admins, and then start moving throughout your network. Now, as you can see, the time it takes for this to happen, the little yellow segment on the timeline, is very short. It's usually in 24 to 48 hours. At that point, they spend months in your network, in the red section, poking around and causing trouble before you finally figure out there is an issue. And the sad thing is, it's very easy to detect these intruders if you have the right tools, and especially in the yellow section. They're very loud, they're very noisy, they're trying to find your admin credentials, and it's tools such as advanced threat analytics is what lets you know when they get to the yellow phase. And if you also employ some privileged access management, that's how you can really stop them from getting to the red. So hopefully this is clear enough on the screen, but this is essentially a screenshot of what advanced threat analytics actually looks like. And what happens is it actually gives you information in real time to help you mitigate the impact of network breaches with rapid detection. So what happens is it adapts to threats inside your perimeter. It helps to establish a baseline of normal user, device, and resource behavior. Over a span of about 21 days or so, it basically watches your network. It gathers information from authentications across all your devices from your users and going to the domain controllers, and understands what's normal behavior. So at that point, any abnormal activity or known infiltration tactics immediately alert administrators who can then use forensic timelines and tools to quickly assess the threat. And as a result, you know what, where, when, and how systems were affected. And you get recommendations right there in the console, so you actually know how to address the threat. So for example, in this here, as you can see on the screen, you can see the stolen admin credentials were stolen in a pass the ticket attack at 9:57 a.m. on February 19th and used access DC1, domain controller 1. And it actually tells you what you need to do. It tells you to isolate the devices from the network, disable the admin account, and it's all in one place and allows you to view risks by severity. So by doing this, it really helps you find out what's happening across your network. It ranks things based on high, medium, low. You can dismiss things, you can mark things for resolution and whatnot, and really just get a lot better controls and insights. So when we talk about privileged access management, this is part 2 of the big picture of what you need to do. So what you can do is actually give admins temporary rights only when they need them in a just-in-time and role-based access model. So what happens is this eliminates hackers from finding overprivileged admin accounts that provide indiscriminate ability to find valuable data on your network. So basically, this means that admins only get rights as they need it. You don't have domain admin accounts just sitting out there all the time with hashes from existing passwords that hackers can take advantage of. And really, fewer permanent admins leads to lesser opportunities for attackers to compromise your high privileged accounts. And this exists both on-prem as well in the cloud. And it really just helps dramatically reduce your attack surface from hackers. So as a result, when you look at breaches now, when you have these tools in place, ATA lets you immediately know when you move from green to yellow when someone gets inside your network in the first 24 or 48 hours because we know that they're there. And once they get in, privileged access management actually keeps them getting admin rights, actually indefinitely, extending the yellow because they can't get the rights they need to install malware and things like that, which is just a huge advantage for you as an organization and really helping to stop the things that occur every single day to your peers and other organizations across the board. Now, when you look at the dashboards available to you in Azure and ATA and other places like that, as well as Azure Security Center, this really helps you get a good oversight in what's happening across your network. You get ideas in terms of existing threats, what's happening in real time, and it serves as a great aggregate location for all of your logs and reports and alerts coming from ATA and other sources. So you get an overall security dashboard of risk across on-prem and cloud resources all in the same place. It's kind of like a SIM-like kind of solution in a way. So with Security Center, it can help you find policies for your Azure subscriptions according to your company's security needs and tailored to the type of applications or sensitivity of the data in each subscription. You can actually use policy-driven recommendations to guide resource owners through the process of implementing required controls, which really helps take the guesswork out of cloud security for you. It's also great because it integrates easily, enables you to rapidly enable a range of security solutions from both Microsoft and their partners, including industry-leading firewalls, anti-malware, and any number of things really. And you can use streamlined provisioning to easily deploy your security solutions and integrate them for you. Even networking changes are configured for you. And as security events from partner solutions are automatically collected for analysis and alerting, it lets you stay ahead of current emerging threats that typically require an integrated analytics-driven approach. So by combining Microsoft's global threat intelligence and expertise with insights into security-related events across your Azure deployments, security can really help you detect actual threats early and also reduce the number of false positives you get on your network. So when you get security alerts, it really offers insights into the attack campaign, including related events and impacted resources. And just the fact that it suggests ways to remediate the issues and recover quickly is just fantastic to have in place for you. And as well as it can also give you anomaly reports to show details on users, devices that may have been compromised. And Microsoft is with the millions and millions of events that occur on a daily basis and all the authentications and all the attacks that occur. It really has a great set of known patterns of typical attacks. It's seen these things before. There aren't any great mysteries in terms of suspected infections such as config or zero access or Emmental or things like that. So really all of this comes together, really gives you a full single pane of glass and insight into what's occurring in your network and really stopping the bad guys from doing what they want to do. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, so I definitely appreciate your time. Thank you much, and back to you, Jerry.
Fantastic, Jeff. Thanks very much.
Certainly.
Hey, just to close out some of the housekeeping items, and want to make sure that everybody on the line is fully aware. As a part of the government cloud activities, Planet provides a service called Azure Advantage, where we know a lot of folks are taking on a lot more of the Azure infrastructure from an infrastructure as a service, a software as a service type model, and even platform as a service. Planet provides a management model over the top of those types of consumptions in order to be able to provide operational management to those environments. It's called Azure Advantage. We have a number of different scenarios within Azure Advantage that provide support, email support, phone support, data recovery, solving performance issues in a support scenario and an ongoing management side of the house. We can offer it up either daily, weekly, or monthly, different types of plans. Reach back out to the You Already Own It alias if you have some questions about that. We'd love to be able to answer your questions. So related to that, I'd like to at least open up the field to a couple of questions if we have some time left. I think we've got a few minutes left. Just either for Mark or Jeff or anybody else on the Planet team that's on the line for folks who have questions. Checking one more time. I do have a couple questions, Mark. You said some things within the last couple minutes of your presentation, your demonstration, that got me thinking. So you mentioned organizational data or BI data. You have the ability to surface that through the bot from a question and answer side of the house. Are you able to surface that as a response, basically surfacing some of your BI data or Power BI type charts or screens as an answer to those questions?
That is an actually really fantastic question. So maybe is the answer. In the card-based interface, you can actually embed HTML content.
Right.
And therefore, you can take content that you would maybe otherwise have in Power BI and that's the data sources that are feeding Power BI, and also have them surface similarly, especially if it's tabular, inside of the chatbot. You can embed Power BI dashboards using iframes. Is the technology that they use right now. It's actually an evolving technology. It's getting better and better. So because of the response being HTML, I actually don't know that we've tried embedding the iframe element in there, if that's supported. But now that you bring it up, I will try it and give it a shot. So again, yes and no. It depends on kind of what you're looking to do.
Well, you know me, I'm always going to ask an interesting over-the-edge question, and my second question ties to the first one, and you'll kind of see where I'm going with this. The second question is, can you, through those bot questions, are you able to, if you're using a mobile device, ask those questions via voice?
Yeah, absolutely. And so they're somewhat dependent upon the channel that you're publishing to, because different channels have different voice capabilities. And so, like, for example, if you are using, let's say you're creating a mobile site, and you want to have that chatbot available on your site, so that when they go out there on their mobile device, they can quickly open that and have that dialogue. That is now supported. I think that was a relatively recent addition, but that is now supported. By clicking the microphone, you can have that dialogue. But you can also, there's a capability called Direct Line, which allows you to develop. So if you're developing mobile applications in Xamarin, for example, you can now, which is going to be typically in this case one opportunity to target mobile platforms. You can actually have cross-platform speech support as well in your apps.
Fantastic. So you see where I'm going with this. I'm driving along with my mobile device. I want to get my latest sales information. I ask the question mobily via voice, and it presents to me my chart, right? I see that in my head, so if I can see it in my head, I'm quite certain you can make it happen.
Yeah, Jay, I'll just create one just for you so you can see it.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. That was top of mind questions for me. Does anybody else have any thoughts or questions there?
Yeah, I've got one. It's Bob. Mark, something's come up a couple of times in conversations recently. So let's say you're using sort of a Q&A style chatbot, right? What can I help you with today? Let's say it's a government customer, et cetera. I'd like to offer those services.
Hi, this is Anthony.
Hi.
Yes. Sorry, I'm calling in late. I had to go move my car.
So.
Hello?
Okay. Hello, yes?
Just a minute. Yeah, hi.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a webcast.
Okay.
Joined.
Yeah, I'm not in the office. I had to leave to run an errand. I had to go move my car.
Yeah, no one called you. So you must have had Skype call you back or something by accident.
Oh, okay. Who's on now?
Wait, is this Hernan?
No, this is Anthony McMillan. This was on my calendar.
Right. Yeah, this is a this is a a one-to-many sort of community webcast on top.
Okay.
With Planet Technologies and a number of so we're in the middle of presenting.
Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Today at this point. At this point.
Well, so, go ahead.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry.
So that's okay. Mark, the question that I was trying to get to is if I am trying to pull, you talked about, crawling your website to feed the bot. The question that keeps coming up with the customer is what's sort of the level of effort to allow sort of data from multiple sources be able to create answers. In other words, let's just say I have a phone directory, and then I have another data source that's a bunch of information about which agencies offer what services. What is the level of effort that goes into aggregating that to give a viable answer of combining those two things together?
Well, that's a good question, and that would be somewhat of an architectural conversation. So, if the idea is that all of the data needs to be federated to a singular conversation point, then getting that information, say for example, into the Q&A maker software is extremely easy. I mean, you can literally have it crawl multiple sources, or you can provide JSON feeds into it to populate that, right? But one of the things that may be appropriate, and this comes up quite a bit, is there may need to be multiple bots. So you might have, one that is dealing with sort of the front end of the process, and something that's dealing with sort of the back end of the process. You think, in something like supply chain, right? You might take that entire path and have different bots handling different parts of that process. And then you can actually tie those all together with, say, a bot with natural language in the front end that can process what the user's looking for, and then send it specifically to the appropriate bot with its own Q&A type database. So that's definitely something that we get into as we start thinking about what the purpose of your bot is, but it's absolutely doable.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for anybody? Going once, twice, and three times. All right, Mark, Jeff, thanks both of you very, very much for this month's content and the time you guys spent, and I appreciate everybody's attendance. You'll get an invitation back out for next month's call here in a few weeks. We look forward to your attending again next month, and thank you very much.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.